Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I hope you all will be fine and doing very well. I'm your science teacher, and in today's science class, we will discuss the chapter number 3, flowers and seeds. As the name of the unit is flowers, so first of all, the question arises that what are flowers and what are they used for? Whenever you go to garden, the colorful flowers attract your attention. Have you ever thought what these flowers are for? Apart from pleasing your eyes with their colors, in what other process of nature are they used? So dear students, we know that flowers are the attractive and reproductive part of the plant. As we know that each living thing reproduce, so like other living things, plants reproduce also, and they reproduce by which part? They reproduce by means of flowers. So all the flowering plants, I meant to say that those plants that bears flowers, they reproduce by means of which part? They reproduce by means of flowers, because the reproductive parts are situated, or we can say they are present within the flower. So flower is the attractive and reproductive part of the plant. Now come towards the structure of flower. So in this unit you will briefly know about, you can understand about the structure of flower, that what are the important, or you can say the major parts of a flower. So flower is very important and attractive part of plant, and in some plant there is only one flower at a stalk, example rose. For example, you can see that wherever we have different kinds of flowers, and sometimes we have a number of flowers are situated at a single stalk. For example, the image on your screen is shown, which is of the flower, which is like 3 or 4 flowers are situated, or they are located at the same stalk. Fine. And there are certain flowers like the rose flower, which is the single flower is present on a stalk. So there are some flowers which are produced in bunches. For example, mustard or the flower which is on your screen, and the rose flower is the type of flower which is singly present at a stalk. And what is the other name of the stalk? The other name of the stalk is pedicel. So stalk is also known as pedicel, and the pedicel and the stalk are the same organs of plant. And here the flower is situated, sometimes a single flower is present, and sometimes bunches of flowers are present at the single stalk. The flower has 4 main parts, and now we will discuss each of these parts one by one. You can see the image on your screen, and here each of the part is clearly shown. So the part of the flower includes sepals, which is the green leaf-like structure. Fine. And the second part is petals. Third one is male reproductive part, which is collectively called stamen, and it has 2 main parts, anther and filament. We will discuss each of these parts one by one also, okay? And the fourth part is the female reproductive part, which is the centralmost part of the flower, and it is known as carpel, and it has 3 main parts: stigma, style and ovary. Now first of all, we will discuss about sepals. That what are sepals? Sepals are the green leaf-like structure which protect the flower in the bud condition. Fine, you can see the image in which the sepals are clearly shown to you, that are green in color, and that covers the flower and that protects the flower in the bud condition. Fine, that is the outermost part of the flower. Clear? Now on the inner side of the sepal, the next part is situated, which is petals. Fine. Petals are attractive in color, they are various in color, and as you know that each flower is of different color. And why it seems to us different? Because of its petals. So as they are attractive, so their function is also to attract the insect for the pollination. And what is pollination? We will discuss it today as well in our today's class after the structure of flower. So just remember the function of the petals, that they are attractive in, and as they are attractive, so they attract the insect for the process of pollination. Fine. The third part is the stamen, which is the male reproductive part. As I have told you earlier that flower is the reproductive part of the plant. So here stamen is the male reproductive part. Fine. As flower is the reproductive part of the plant, so among the reproductive parts we have two types. We have two parts, female reproductive part and male reproductive part. So the stamen is the male reproductive part of the flower, okay, and it consists of further two parts, that is filament and anther. The top part is known as anther and the lower part is known as filament, which supports the anther. Now the fourth part, which is the female reproductive part, and that is carpel. Fine. Carpel consists of three main parts: stigma, style and ovary. Clear? So what are the ovules here? Ovules are the tiny rounded structure which are present in the rounded portion of the carpel, and that is the ovary. Fine. So in the ovary, tiny structures are present which are known as ovules, and that take part in the process of reproduction. Fine. Later on in this unit you will understand about the topic of sexual reproduction, and hence you will here then you will discuss the ovules which take part in the reproduction. Fine. So the carpel, which is female reproductive part, consists of three main parts: stigma, style and ovary, and within the ovary tiny rounded structures are present which are known as ovules. Must remember that the stigma part of the carpel is sticky in nature. Fine. कि जो stigma part है वो sticky होता है. Understand? So it has three parts: stigma, style and ovary, and the stigma is the sticky part of the carpel. You have this in your book on the page number 35. So on this page you have the parts of flower, their characteristics, that how they look like and their function. So just by reading 2 or 3 times you can clear your topic very well, just by reading it, because here each and every part is discussed very clearly and you can understand it more. Fine. So just give it a read 2 or 3 times after the class. The next topic is about pollination. What is pollination? As I have told you the name of this topic in the previous topic, that the petals are attractive because they attract the insect for the process of pollination. So now we will discuss here that what is pollination and how many types it has. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the flower. Now if you remember about the parts of the flower, so I have told you that flower is the reproductive part, and in the flower stamen is the male reproductive part and carpel is the female reproductive part. Fine. Now stamen has further two parts, anther and filament, and carpel has further three parts, stigma, style and ovary. Now within the anther we have pollen grains. So the pollen grains from the anther transfer to the female reproductive part, and to which part? To the स्टिग्मा. सो दैट होल प्रोसेस इज़ नोन एज पोलिनेशन. ठीक है, जो पूरा ये प्रोसेस है जिसमें पोलन ग्रेन्स हमारे पास मेल रिप्रोडक्टिव पार्ट से यानी एंथर से फीमेल रिप्रोडक्टिव पार्ट की तरफ आते हैं, मींस स्टिग्मा की तरफ आते हैं. और चूँकि स्टिग्मा स्टिकी होता है तो वो वहाँ पर स्टिक हो जाते हैं, जिसकी वजह से ये प्रोसेस होता है. और इस प्रोसेस को हम क्या कहते हैं? पोलिनेशन कहते हैं. द ट्रांसफ़र ऑफ पोलन ग्रेन्स from the male reproductive part, that is the anther, to the female reproductive part, that is the stigma, is known as pollination. Fine. Now we have two types of pollination. One is the self pollination and the other one is the cross pollination. सेल्फ पोलिनेशन एज द नेम इंडिकेट्स इज़ फॉर सेल्फ. ठीक है, जब फ्लावर के अंदर ही सारा पोलिनेशन का प्रोसेस हो रहा हो, देन इट वुड बी द सेल्फ पोलिनेशन. ट्रांसफ़र ऑफ पोलन ग्रेन्स फ्रॉम द एंथर ऑफ टू द स्टिग्मा ऑफ द सेम फ्लावर. यानी जिस फ्लावर के एंथर से पोलन ग्रेन्स ट्रांसफ़र हो रहे हैं उसी के स्टिग्मा पर स्टिक हो जाए, तो देन दैट इज़ द सेल्फ पोलिनेशन. ठीक है, यानी सारा पोलिनेशन का प्रोसेस क्या होगा? एक ही फ्लावर में होगा. सो दैट इज़ द सेल्फ पोलिनेशन. फाइन. ट्रांसफ़र ऑफ पोलन ग्रेन्स फ्रॉम एन एंथर टू अ स्टिग्मा ऑफ द सेम प्लांट और यू कैन से द सेम फ्लावर. ठीक है, अगर एक ही प्लांट पे भी हो रहा है या हमारे पास एक ही फ्लावर में ही हो रहा है, देन दैट इज़ द हमारे पास कौन सा केस होगा? ये सेल्फ पोलिनेशन का केस होगा. नाउ कम टूवर्ड्स द सेकेंड टाइप, दैट इज़ द क्रॉस पोलिनेशन. Transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a different plant of the same species. Means कि अगर रोज़ प्लांट से हमारे पास पोलन ग्रेन्स उठ रहे हैं, ट्रांसफ़र हो रहे हैं, तो वो किसी दूसरे रोज़ प्लांट, सेम स्पीशी मतलब रोज़ प्लांट पे ही जाएंगे. ठीक है, ये बात नहीं होगी कि रोज़ प्लांट से वो सनफ्लावर की तरफ जाए. नहीं, हम ट्रांसफ़र की बात कर रहे हैं सेम स्पीशीज़ में, लेकिन प्लांट क्या होगा? डिफरेंट हो जाएगा. यानी एक प्लांट से, एक रोज़ प्लांट से ट्रांसफ़र होगा दूसरे रोज़ प्लांट पर. तो तब हमारे पास ये कौन सा केस होगा? देन इट विल बी द cross pollination, because transfer of pollen grains takes place from one plant to the other plant of the same species, from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of the same species. Clear? Then that will be the cross pollination. I am repeating once again the topic of pollination, that is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a flower. And then we have two types, self pollination and the cross pollination. If the transfer of this pollen takes place in the same flower, means they are transferred from the anther of a flower to the stigma of the same flower, then it is the self pollination. And if this transfer is from one plant to another plant of the same species, then that is the cross pollination. Clear? Now you can see the image on your screen. Here the case A and B is of the self pollination. अब देखें यहाँ पर दो फ्लावर हैं लेकिन वो सेम, अब A B आप देखें दो फ्लावर हैं लेकिन वो सेम प्लांट पर हैं. तो जब हमारे पास जो A है वो सेम फ्लावर में ही जो एंथर से पोलन ग्रेन्स हैं ट्रांसफ़र हो रहे हैं स्टिग्मा पर सेम फ्लावर के, तो ये हमारे पास सेल्फ पोलिनेशन का केस है. नंबर सेकेंड, दे आर ट्रांसफरिंग फ्रॉम द फ्लावर A टू द फ्लावर B, बट द फ्लावर इज़ ऑफ द सेम प्लांट. ठीक है, बिल्कुल एक ही प्लांट है, इसमें दूसरा प्लांट इन्वॉल्व नहीं हो रहा. ठीक है, हमारे पास वो जो है सेपरेट स्टॉक पर है, सेपरेट ब्रांच पर है, लेकिन हमारे पास प्लांट एक ही है. देन द केस A एंड B आर द एग्जांपल्स ऑफ सेल्फ पोलिनेशन. ठीक है, ये हमारे पास सेल्फ पोलिनेशन है, एक ही प्लांट इन्वॉल्व है. एक एग्जांपल में उन्होंने एक ही फ्लावर इन्वॉल्व किया है, जबकि जो बी वाली एग्जांपल है उसमें पोलन ग्रेन्स ट्रांसफ़र हो रहे हैं फ्रॉम द एंथर ऑफ वन फ्लावर to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. लेकिन जो केस सी है हमारे पास, उसमें जो पोलन ग्रेन्स ट्रांसफ़र हो रहे हैं, दे आर ट्रांसफरिंग फ्रॉम द फ्लावर ऑफ वन प्लांट टू द फ्लावर ऑफ अनदर प्लांट ऑफ सेम स्पीशीज़. दोनों प्लांट्स देखें सेम हैं लेकिन सेपरेट हो गए हैं. बी जो सी वाला है वो एक प्लांट से ट्रांसफ़र हो रहे हैं दूसरे प्लांट की तरफ. देन दैट इज़ द क्रॉस पोलिनेशन. क्लियर? A and B are the case of self pollination and C is the case of cross pollination. Hope so कि आपको ये टॉपिक क्लियर हो गए होंगे. and you have to do the homework, which is to learn short question 1 and 2 of chapter 2 from your notebook, and you have to read the book page 34, 35 and 36. And because by reading these pages you will more clear your topics. Fine. So hope you have understand the today's lecture very well. Stay home and stay blessed. Thank you.